It was a dark and silent night in the forest. A young man had decided to venture out alone, despite the warnings that this place was dangerous. As he walked, the branches of the trees creaked in the wind, creating strange and frightening sounds. The young man tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him, light footsteps, as if someone was following his steps. The young man tried to run, but the noise continued to follow him. He began to feel increasingly anxious, his heart pounding in his chest. The noise stopped for a moment, and then started again, louder and closer. The young man started to run, but tripped and fell. When he got up, he saw a strange figure in the distance. He couldn't see clearly what it was, but he knew it wasn't human. The figure began to approach the young man, who started to run again. He could feel the creature's breath on his neck, and he knew he was being hunted. The young man tripped again and fell. When he turned around, he saw the creature up close. It was something he had never seen before, something that didn't belong in this world. The creature didn't say a word, but the young man could feel its malevolent presence. He tried to defend himself, but it was useless. The creature was too strong. The young man began to lose consciousness, and the last thing he heard was the sound of the creature whispering in his ear. And then, silence. The young man had disappeared, and the forest was quiet once again. But some say that on dark nights you can still hear the sound of the creature whispering in the forest. And if you listen closely, you can hear the young man's voice screaming for help. I'll never forget that night. I was alone in my house when I saw something that made me question my sanity. It was an entity, a presence that seemed to emanate a malevolent energy. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when suddenly I felt a chill down my spine. I turned around and saw a figure standing in front of me. It was tall, thin, and seemed to be watching me. The entity didn't move, didn't blink. It just stared at me with eyes that seemed to see right through me. I tried to speak, but my voice was trapped in my throat. I was paralyzed with fear. The entity began to approach me, and I felt my heart racing. I knew I needed to flee, but my feet felt heavy, as if they were nailed to the floor. The entity drew closer, and I felt its cold breath on my face. I closed my eyes and prayed for it to be over. When I opened my eyes again, the entity was gone. I'll never forget that night. I'll never forget the feeling of fear I felt. And I'll never know what that entity wanted from me. I was driving down the highway. The night was dark and silent. The only light came from the headlights of my car, illuminating the road ahead. I was tired, but I needed to keep driving. Suddenly, I saw something on the road, something that made my heart stop. It was a car, or at least it looked like a car. It was destroyed, crushed and twisted in a way that didn't seem possible. I slowed down and approached the car. As I got closer, I saw that there was no one inside, no sign of life. But there was something strange in the air. I got out of the car and approached the wrecked vehicle. That's when I saw it. Something I'll never forget. There were human body parts scattered all over the road. Arms, legs, heads, everything mixed with the wreckage. I felt a strong wave of nausea and stepped back. I didn't understand what had happened. Who could have done something so horrible? And why? I got back in my car and kept driving. I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to get off that highway and never come back. But as I drove away, I couldn't help but look back. And that's when I saw him. A figure standing on the road, behind the wrecked car. A figure that seemed to be watching me. I couldn't see his face, but I knew he was looking at me. I accelerated the car and kept driving. I didn't look back again. I didn't want to know what was happening. I just wanted to get off that highway and never come back. I was walking through the forest, the sunlight filtering through the trees. I had been walking for hours, but I hadn't seen anything out of the ordinary. Until I saw him. He was tall and thin, with long, spindly arms and legs. His skin was pale and seemed to be stretched over his bones. His face was the most disturbing, with large black eyes that seemed to be watching me. I tried to approach him, but he didn't move. He just looked at me, as if he was studying me. I felt a shiver run down my spine and started to feel uncomfortable. As I watched him, I noticed that he didn't have a nose or mouth, just two black holes where his eyes should be. I felt a growing sense of fear and started to back away slowly. But he moved. He moved quickly and silently, as if he was gliding across the ground. I tried to run, but my legs were heavy and I couldn't move. He approached me, his eyes fixed on me. I felt his cold breath on my face, although I knew he didn't have a mouth. I closed my eyes and prayed for it to be over. When I opened my eyes again, he was gone. I was alone in the forest, surrounded by silence. I didn't know if I had imagined it all, but I knew I would never forget those black, disturbing eyes. I was at home, alone, when I heard a noise upstairs. I thought it was just the wind or the house settling, but then I heard it again. It was the sound of footsteps, light and silent. I went upstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew something was wrong. When I reached the top of the stairs, I saw him. He was identical to my neighbor, but there was something wrong. His eyes were wrong. His skin was wrong. He was smiling, but it wasn't a human smile. I tried to speak, but my voice was trapped in my throat. He approached me, his eyes fixed on me. I felt a deep fear and started to back away, but he moved too fast. He grabbed me, and I felt intense pain. I tried to fight, but he was too strong. I saw my neighbor, or at least I thought it was him, but now I knew it wasn't. It was something different, something malevolent. I felt my consciousness start to fade. I knew I was in danger, but I couldn't do anything. And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was alone in my house. There was no sign of anything out of the ordinary. I thought it had just been a nightmare, but I knew it wasn't. I never looked at my neighbor the same way again. I didn't know what he was, but I knew I didn't want to know.